Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're learning Mishna Beitza, Paragimel, Chapter 3, Mishnah Ches, Mishnah 8. Okay. Oimer Adam lachaveiroi male li klizeh avaloi b'mida. If, let's say, you are buying some food for Yontif, so as we said, in order to avoid it be considered doing business, you need to do it in a irregular manner, on the typical way that you do the business. So in this case, you're a person, we're not buying meat here, we're buying oil, let's say. And the person says to his friend, fill up for me this vessel. Meaning, I want this vessel's full of oil. So you can say that to him, but you can't do that with a measuring cup. You cannot do it with, what I mean by measuring cup, let's not think about, the measuring cup that has like the different amounts on it. Let's talk about a measuring cup. The way you understand it is, it was a cup. You knew exactly what its measurement was, and that is what you measured out this amount in. Now, the Mishna is saying, if you have a cup like that that's designated for that, it's a measuring cup, then you cannot say to the person, fill up this cup for me. That's the same thing as saying, I want this amount, I want this measurement. And that would be considered doing business. So you tell him, you take a kli, you take a vessel, everybody knows how much the vessel holds, but it's not designated as a measuring cup. In that situation, you could say, fill up this kli, because you're not using a measuring cup, but a designated measuring cup, a standing measuring cup, using something that could be a measuring cup because you know how much it holds. Not only that, the Baratunura says, this cup, you plan on using it if your regular measuring cup breaks. We're talking about something that's like a standby measuring cup. Nonetheless, still, we say that as long as it's not the designated measuring cup, you can use it for filling. Okay, so that's what it means. You person can tell to his friend, fill up this cup for me, but not in a measuring cup, meaning not one that's designated. Even though the other one could be used, the other one may even eventually be used. Nonetheless, we say you can do it, according to the first opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says, if it is a measuring utensil, meaning if it's fit for measuring, meaning it's the kind of kli, you know how much it's there, and therefore it's something that could be it's fit to be a measuring kli, lo yamalenu, you can't fill it up. You can't use that to tell the person to fill it up. That's according to Rabbi Yehuda. So we have the machlekes. Basically, if they're talking about a designated measuring cup, that you for sure can't say, fill this up for me. The question is, one that's not a designating measuring cup, but fit to be a measuring cup, could you use that? Okay, that's the first part of the Mishnah. Now, to continue from this, Ma'aseh Abba Shaul ben Butnis. It happened with the sage whose name was Abba Shaul, the son of Butnis. He was not only a Talmud Chacham, wasn't only a Torah scholar, he was a merchant. Okay. He would fill up his measuring cups from before Yontif, and would give it to the buyers on Yontif. Meaning, he didn't want to measure on Yontif. He didn't want to get in, and I don't know who he paskined like in this machlekes. I don't know who he followed the machlekes before, but in the very least, he didn't want to get into this whole issue about measuring on Yontif. So instead, what he did was he measured everything before Yontif. And therefore, he could get everybody exactly what they wanted. That's the first part. Abba Shaul Omer, the sage Abba Shaul said about Abba Shaul ben Butnis, even on Cholamoid, where there's typically no issue, there should be no halachic issue about measuring. Still, he did this thing about filling up the measuring cups beforehand. Mipnei baruri hamidis, because of the foam of the measurements. What does that mean? So I'm reading to you what it means. When wine is poured from one container into another, it often foams, filling the container to the top. When the foam subsides, however, the container is no longer full. Abba Shaul ben Butnis would normally wait until the foam subsided and then add more wine before giving it to the customer. Did he have to do that? No, he did not have to do that. Everybody knows when you pour from one container to another, it's going to foam. Most people don't want to wait around for it to go down, and it's just assumed that. And so that's part of the deal. It's understood that that's what's going to be. Abba Shaul didn't want that. He promised he made up a person a measurement. He wanted them to get the full measure. Now, the problem was on Chol Hamoed, he was a very busy man. Why? Because on Chol Hamoed, people aren't working. What were they doing? They were learning. They were learning Torah. And therefore, more people had more questions to ask. And as a sage, had come to ask him. So a whole day, he was busy answering questions. So if he'd have to go ahead by day and, whenever he was selling to people and sit there and wait for the foam to subside before he finished filling it up, that would cost time from learning. Mm-hmm. And therefore, what did he do? The night before, he measured everything out. Right? He had everything measured out before so that the foam already subsided. He filled it up to the top. And tomorrow they could get what he can give them the full measure that he wanted to give them. And then the Mishnah says, the Chachamim say, you know when else he did it? He even did it during the week. He even did it, forget about Yontif, forget about weekday, forget about Chol Hamoed. He did it every day. Every day. Why? In order to drain out the exact measure. Meaning, you go ahead and the person asks you for a certain measure of oil. Okay. So what do? He brings his container, right? You have the merchant had his measuring cup, measuring cup, and then he would pour from the measuring cup into the person's container. Now we know that there's always going to be some oil stuck to the sides, right? And no one's going to stand and wait there for it to drip and drip and drip and drip. Mm-hmm. It's understood that, okay, it's, here it is. We put it as much as we can and it's time to go. But again, he didn't feel that was right. So every night, what he would tell his customers to do is bring your utensils the night before that you want to bring the oil home with. And overnight, he'd have a lot of containers, and each one of them would be a whole night pouring into the customer's container so that every drop should be able to come out from the vessel. That's what he did. Was he obligated to do that? No, he was not. But he went beyond the letter of the law to make sure that people got the full measure. Mishnah concludes, a person can go to a storekeeper who he is accustomed to buy. He's a regular customer there. Regular customer means that that I'm going to pay you. This is Yontif. Right? He's not paying him on Yontif. Mm-hmm. So you're going to your regular chedmini, your regular storekeeper who that even when you buy small items from him, you're going to come back and you're going to pay him. Because if you don't pay him, he's not going to deal with you any other time you want to come in. He can say to him, give me eggs or walnuts by number. I need 12 eggs. I need 27 walnuts. That is not the same halacha as telling someone a measure. Why is that? Because a person counts his food in his house. We need 10 eggs for supper. We need 27 walnuts for dessert. People at home talk about numbers when it comes to preparing their food at home. Therefore, using a number is not called a business technique. Mm-hmm. It's not specifically business. People at home use numbers too. Apparently, measurements they didn't use at home as much. Nowadays you would say people say I need a quarter cup to bake this and a quarter cup to bake that. Yeah. Apparently, that wasn't as common in the times of the Mishnah to use measurements at home or to discuss measurements at home, and therefore measurement is considered a business act. While using a number is not considered a business act because even at home people use numbers to count their food. Mm-hmm. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.